is started,
Yep.
right? Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Padraic, for being with me in this quick interview.
Always.
And I have the pleasure to have you today. Of course, you are one of the sales gurus in the sales industry. So I'm very delighted to be with you and to listen from you about your success story. And thank you so much.
Well, I am humbled by the ask, so I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Perfect. So we will start. Let me ask you if you can give us an idea about yourself before you start in sales. Where have you
Hmm.
been, and which city did you start from, or you were born at,
Yeah,
and how did you start your career?
yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So, I live in a. I'm from a small little town outside of Dublin in Ireland called Maynooth, and
Okay.
I went to college in the University College of Galway, where I studied law for a couple of years, and then I studied English, and I got my first primary degree in English, then
Okay.
subsequently got a master's in English. I,
Amazing.
I originally, I think I wanted to be a lawyer or a journalist. I believe I've always had an ability to be articulate and communicate well.
Amazing.
And no more than a lot of people in our industry, I kind of fell into sales. What I mean by that is I was finishing my master's degree. I was in college. I was working weekends as a barman, working in the pubs or the bars of my locality, and wanted a summer job and
Okay.
went to work for a small American BPO that had just opened up in Dublin in Ireland.
Amazing.
They were called ICT, the ICT group. They were subsequently purchased by Sykes and then by Sitel.
Okay.
Um, and when I started there, I actually started there in my very early 20s working as a quality advisor.
Okay.
Did that for maybe 6 months, moved then into BI. So it was a business intelligence analyst for about
Okay.
another 6 to 12 months. And then the operation moved from the centre of Dublin out into a business park in the west of Dublin, or the northwest of Dublin, called East Point. And when we
Okay.
moved to a bigger location, we were scaling the operation, and they were looking for sales leaders. And by nature of the fact that I had been working in the business for 18 months, I'd been reporting, so I knew about the KPIs, knew about how what the importance of targets. I had helped build compensation models for programs, etc. Um, and then the fact that my background had been, I suppose, as I said, in that, you know, English law history space, I was seen to be articulate and somebody who could communicate. So I
Okay.
moved from being a business intelligence analyst to being what they called at the time a client services lead. And
Okay.
then the way that BPO was structured was they had people that just worked directly with customers, and then you had delivery. Very much like our own model now with account management and our go-to-market teams, and then the delivery teams. So I
Hmm.
started actually my sales career in more the client services account management space,
Okay.
working with customers, listening to their issues or problems, telling the story of our performance, etc. Did that for a couple of years, and then I was fortunate enough to take the leadership of the Dublin site over for this BPO. And we were in a period of hyper growth, and we opened up another location in Ireland, and then we opened up a back office location in the very northwest of Ireland. And I was
Amazing.
responsible at a very young age, actually. I was responsible for those three sites. So I was the delivery leader for ICT in Ireland.
Amazing.
So I ran those locations for probably about 5 years
Okay.
till ICT were sold to Sykes, and then I was actually made redundant. I was out of work. Now, fortunately, when I was young, and this is something that I think is important for everybody, regardless of where you are in your career. When I was young, and I'm talking about in my early to mid 20s, I had a mentor. It's funny that we were talking about this. But she fulfilled a role on an industry board in Ireland called the CCMA. It was the Contact Center Managers Association. And she asked me to sit on the board. And what that gave me was connections with loads of other people that worked in the industry. So, for example, it's amazing how the world comes full circle. I would have met Cormac Toomey, who was with Stream and Convergys at the time, when I was a much younger person. He probably doesn't even remember that, but I'd met him because I had sat on these industry boards. But
Mm-hmm.
what that gave me was a network. So when then,
Networking.
unfortunately, I was made redundant, I was able to make a few phone calls and I landed a job within a couple of weeks. And that
Amazing.
job was to become the sales leader for Sage Ireland, who are actually one of our customers now. Sage are one of our B2B customers in Europe and globally. But I went in to manage their Irish inside sales team.
Amazing.
Did that for 18 months to 2 years, and then was approached by Service Source, who were acquired by Concentrix about a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and I went actually to interview for a director role.
Amazing.
Didn't get the director role.
Okay.
So they came back to me and said, look, we love you, like your experience. We think you're just a little bit shy of what you need to be a director in our business. Would you be interested to take a senior sales manager role? And the
Okay.
difference between the roles was the senior sales manager went in and managed one customer. A client delivery director went in and managed multiple customers.
Yes.
So at the time, and again, another lesson that I've learned in my career, just my career trajectory, is it's okay to take a step back sometimes if you think it's going to propel you forward. And
Exactly.
that's the bet that I made at that time. I took the senior sales manager role, came into Service Source in 2010. Within 2 years, I'd become director. So I got to where I wanted to be initially.
Yep.
A further 2 or 3 years from that, in 2015, I took the responsibility for the Dublin site. So I became the site lead in Dublin. At that
Mm-hmm.
time, it was about a 450 person operation, much smaller now as business has moved on to other locations. But all the way through that delivery experience, I never lost my initial experience of client services.
Definitely.
So I never forgot, especially in the world that we live in, the outsourced sales world, that the customer is king, that we do not exist without our customers.
Definitely.
And what I had learned at a very early age, as I said, is how to speak to customers. And sometimes it's not speaking. I've always been told that I speak too much sometimes. Hard to believe, I know, Moment, but I have had that feedback. I also get the feedback that I've been given two ears and one mouth, and I need to use them in proportion because I talk too much and I don't listen enough. So active listening is a huge part of something and it's something that I've had to work on as a sales leader, because our instinct is to run to the problem, to run and solve, to run and
Yeah.
sell. And sometimes we need to take a step back and listen a little bit more. So I've been very fortunate. After I had took the Dublin location, I subsequently took the Liverpool location on. I've worked as a global account manager for a couple of smaller accounts as well. And before Service Source were acquired by Concentrix, I was heavily involved in three of our largest logos from a global perspective. So I was running delivery from a sales perspective, but I was also supporting the outside sales team and the go-to-market team to land our big deals, which just gave me a very holistic picture about how the sales cycle works, how customers buy, how to listen to what customers are saying, how to identify problems in the sales cycle. And I kind of have been somebody who has a vision of where they want to go,
Mm-hmm.
has an idea how they want to get there.
Yeah.
I'm extremely open to feedback,
Definitely.
but I often do the job that I want before I get the job.
Yeah.
And what that means is sometimes, and the world that we live in, people are looking for kind of instantaneous results or instant gratification, or if I do X, I need to be rewarded Y. The best advice that I can give people is sometimes is what I've said is sometimes you've got to grab the job before the job is available or becomes available. And that means that you've got to kind of leave your humility at the door and just do what's right for you and for the company at the right time.
Yeah,
And then trust in your leadership or trust in the people that you work for, that they will identify the talent and they will ultimately reward the talent. So, for example, I would consider myself, and I don't like titles per se, but I would consider myself to be a servant leader. I do not, I cannot be successful unless my team feel and are successful.
yeah,
And I've built a career on being very accessible. I've built a career on building teams that, yes, they have a hierarchy because a hierarchy is important in business,
definitely.
but the hierarchy shouldn't stop you doing business. What I mean
Hmm.
by that is anybody in the business can get hold of me.
Yes,
For if they need something, if they need help, if they need advice, if they need guidance, if they need approval, if they need direction, and vice versa, I have to be available to them. So that's we jump on a call, we jump on a Teams conversation, we we just jump on an ad hoc call because it's something urgent that needs to be handled. If you're not willing to be a servant leader, you will struggle in sales leadership because the most successful sales leaders I have seen through my career are those that realize very quickly that it's never about them. It's about how the team perform.
exactly. And I 100% agree with what you're saying, actually, Podrick. And it's very inspiring journey. And I really see a lot of mirroring things here. That's amazing, actually. And I have another question for
Please.
you, if you don't mind. It's why do you love sales? Like, this is a question that I love to ask people because
Yeah,
it's very crucial.
two or three reasons. The first reason is that I'm naturally curious.
Okay.
And why does that mean I like sales? It's because if we're selling a service or a product, I like to understand what it does or what benefit it's going to bring to the end user or the buyer.
Amazing.
And I find it really interesting the buying patterns or the level of due diligence that some of our customers go to. And I find that whole process really interesting. So the first thing is I love sales because I'm naturally curious.
Amazing.
The second reason I love sales is because actually no two sales are the same.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what customer we work for, what line of business, what vertical. So whether you go up or down or left or right, every sale is different because you're selling to people and every person is different. And every
Exactly.
company is, and especially in our B2B world, and it's the same in B2C, but in B2B, which is where I spent all my career, convincing a customer that your product or service is better than somebody else's, I get an awful lot of energy from that
Amazing.
because the will to win and the will to be number one, that's just, I don't know, that's been instilled in me. Something I didn't say a moment is I love sport, right?
Hmm.
All my life I've been playing football. I've been captains of teams. I've always assumed natural leadership positions in sporting environments. And I think that translated very well and very seamlessly into the business environment. But no 2 days are the same for me. And that's what I love the variety that sales brings. Now, don't get me wrong, there's big highs when things go great and you win big, and there's
Yep.
big lows when things don't go around. The other
It's
thing that
never
as a
boring.
sales leader, yeah, yeah, exactly,
It's
exactly.
never boring.
Never boring. And but as a sales leader, we're responsible for being steady.
Yeah.
One of the best sayings that I've heard that was said to me by one of our customers actually was don't let a win go to your head or let a loss go to your heart. And what that means is when things go great Don't think that you're the greatest in the world all of a sudden.
Exactly.
And when things go bad, remember that you're not that it's not the worst time of your life. There's worse things. So perspective is another thing that you need to bring to the table as a sales leader. But I hope that
Definitely.
answered your question. That's why I love sales.
I love it. I love it. I love your answer here. So that's perfect, and I really like actually the answers that you're saying is very inspiring. And I have a lot of more questions actually, but I don't want to take
Please,
a
I
lot
have
of your
time. Let's
time.
go.
And my next question is going to be from your point of view, what is success?
So I've just talked about no 2 days being the same in sales. The definition of success is hugely varied depending on who you speak to.
Exactly.
The culture that I like to drive and work in is very much a culture where people work to live rather than live to work. And what I mean by that is so one of my success criteria is that my team feel they're being rewarded properly, that they come to work every morning with positive intent, that they assume positive intent in every interaction that they have, but they also know that there's an end of the working day, and post that, they can go and live their life with their friends and their family. So I think work and so that's one definition of success. In a
I
sales
love it.
environment, it's finding the balance between enjoying and thriving in work, but work being an ability to support outside of work. That's one criteria of success. Within work, success for me, honestly, is being number one.
Amazing. And that's
But being number one again is relative in perspective. Being number one doesn't necessarily mean I've got the biggest revenue with the biggest margin. My KPIs are the biggest and the best. What it means is number for me for being number one is I've got a high performing team. I've got happy customers. I've got low attrition. Or if people leave me or leave our business, it's because they leave to go and do something bigger and better.
yeah,
I don't. I would always encourage people. And look, I would love if everybody stayed in our business forever. Wouldn't that be lovely and easy? But
yeah,
it's never going to happen. We want to create great salespeople and let them go out into the world. But they should only leave us if they're going to do something better. So that's what success is for me: is that we create an army of wonderful salespeople who may or may not, who we want to give career paths to, but if we can't, they're going to go and do it somewhere else and do great. But they will always remember what they learned here.
exactly.
As I said, I used to manage 450 people in Dublin. We've reduced that down to a much lower number, but there's a lot of people that have left my business and gone to work for all of our customers. And they're all doing brilliant things. They're all in senior leadership roles. And when I meet them, they always say, God, the things that I learned at Concentrix or at Service Source at the time has always stood to me. It was a great place to work. That for me is success. Being a great place to work, being a fulfilling place to work.
Amazing. I love that. Thank you so much, actually, Padraic. And I can say the same because part of my journey, I left Concentrix for 1 year and I returned.
Yeah,
So during the time that I was outside, I kept saying that a lot of things that I learned here is valuable so much, and that's was the reason actually that I came back because I had a vision about
yeah,
something I want to achieve here that's not yet done. So I understand where you're coming from, definitely, and such a great goal, and it's really happening on the ground. I can tell you that since I'm actually one of your team members
yeah.
down the
Good.
road. So that's amazing. And I think like let's say I have this question, it's a little bit direct. So
Okay.
when you want to get promoted, let's say to the
Yeah.
next level, what's usually your game plan to make this a smooth move?
I've kind of answered this question a little bit already, but I understand so first of all, you need to understand the role that you want.
Mm-hmm.
What are the expectations of the role? What does that role entail? How is it different from what you're doing today? A lot of people want the title, but they don't want to do the work to get the title.
Yeah.
They believe that if they do a good job every day, that it should just naturally happen. That's not how life works, and that's not how business works. You need to differentiate yourself. A lot of people in our business are really excellent at what they do every day. But as an example moment, they will come onto calls and they will sit quietly on calls and don't bring a point of view. You have to differentiate yourself. You have to bring a perspective and a point of view. That point of view may be wrong, by the way. You don't, that's not me saying you have to always be right. No. Have a point of view, have a perspective, have an opinion. Make sure that it's based in data and fact and anecdotes as well, where things have gone well, but broadly data and facts as well. And be disruptive.
Definitely.
Our culture statements, I love our culture statements because that one about not settling for the status quo is probably the most important one in our business at the moment because of
Yeah.
the trajectory that our industry is on. But from an individual's perspective, how you get noticed and how you build a career and how you get to that next role is, as I've said, find out what find a person that's doing that role today and speak to them.
Yeah.
Find out what they do every day that's different to what you're doing every day. If it's one level up or if it's two levels up, build that out.
Mm-hmm.
There is no right or wrong way to do a job sometimes. Normally, there's only the outcome. What are you being asked to deliver? So that's a very important piece as well. And you need to have vision. You need to have a vision of why you want that because we're all in a competitive environment. So in a competitive environment where everybody has broadly the same training, broadly has the same experience, are probably experts in what they're working on today, how do you differentiate yourself from the crowd in that? And how I've done that, just personally speaking for me, how I've done that is I've grabbed the work, I've done it in conjunction with my own work, so that when the gap appears, everybody goes, well, Shapart knows how to do that. He's doing that already. He's been doing that for 6 months. He never once complained. He never once asked for a promotion. He never once asked for whatever. He's a natural fit. He's proven he can do it. Now,
Yeah.
personally, that's how I've built my own. There's different styles, Mo. I'm not saying mine's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's the way I've done it. I
I
have done
I
the job
understand.
that I wanted before I got the job or before the job became available.
So you like to put that also in other words, we can say that you are always taking the lead and doing the next level responsibilities, in other words, and not being not being reactive. You're being proactive about things that needs to be covered, responsibilities that needs like maybe the upper management needs help with,
Yes,
and you can give a helping hand. You will not wait until they come and ask for you to do it. You will go and be proactive about it.
I will go and say to them. So, and I can give you an example. I told you, but part of my story was I was running Dublin in the mid 2010s. The leader in Liverpool, so we had a site in Liverpool as well, left at short notice. I immediately said, I'll look after Liverpool. I'll take it. And they were going, well, no, it's a big operation. I said, no. Sorry, you're misunderstanding me. You go and find somebody to do Liverpool, but that might take 3 months. I'll manage Liverpool for the 3 months while we find somebody. And then we found somebody, and that person didn't took the role, right? But for that 3 months, I was running Dublin and Liverpool. Subsequently, a couple of years later, as Dublin was getting a little bit smaller, Liverpool was getting a bit smaller, we were putting more work in Sofia and then subsequently in Cairo. I went proactively to the business and said, let Vinny was there at the time, let Vinny go run North America. I'll take Liverpool. Sure, I did it before. And they all went, oh yeah, you did it before. Like sometimes people forget. So it was natural for them to go, makes perfect sense. And that's actually how I got to the VP level. I was a senior director at the time. I said, give me Liverpool, did it for 6 months, was successful, and I went, oh, yeah, okay, you've earned it, go.
Yeah,
So yeah, you have to
I
do
get
it
your green
sometimes
flag.
before you get it.
Exactly. That's definitely, one of the things I 100% agree on. And, I see a lot of success stories that did it the same way. So
Hmm.
I can very highly vouch for this. I'm just cautious of time also. Are we still good to continue
I
the
can give you
questions
certainly, I can
or?
give you another 10 minutes if that works for you.
Yeah, that will be more than amazing.
Perfect.
Like this question this time is a little bit different, and the question says, if there is something you can go back in time to change about you that was decelerating your success,
Hmm.
what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question. About where are we now? We're now in May. So I had the good fortune of attending the Culture Road shows that was in London in February, I think.
Okay.
And the reason I mentioned that is that part of that session was, and I actually have the book here that we got. I don't know, can you see that, right?
Yeah, but
And part of the session was we were working with the writer of a book called Erin Meyer. She wrote this book called The Culture Map.
mhm.
I think one of the things that if I was to go back in time, I would have invested more time in is in working in an international company, is understanding that different cultures hear the same message different ways. So, for example, albeit my role was EMEA based, I worked very closely with my peers in APJ and in North America. And I'm kind of what you see is what you get. I talk fast, probably too fast. I've my Irish accent. I think I communicate well and clearly, but I think in the past I've over leveraged that. And what I mean by that is I would come off calls thinking that was great. I was very clear. Everybody understood me perfectly and go about my merry way. And then you'd find out a couple of weeks, months, days, depending on the situation, that people were unclear on what I said. And I'd be sitting here going, hold on a second, I was very clear. I know what I said on the call. I was very clear. And it's a lesson in that I needed to be more culturally aware of my environment. I needed to understand that I need to say and communicate in different ways to different stakeholders and different groups at times. What I've done to remedy that is I've introduced a little personal process for myself, which is called send and check.
Mhm.
So if I send a message or if I do a communication, I will check with all of my team, or if it's international or if it's in a different region. After the call, I'll check in. I'll say, guys, replay that conversation to me. Tell me what I said. Did that make sense? And that gives me the opportunity to correct if the message hasn't landed correctly. So I think that's the one thing. If I had my time again, I would have done more research and probably a little bit more understanding of what of the importance of being more culturally aware in a global environment. Is that okay?
Amazing. Yeah, that's great actually, and I really love it how cautious you are about the things that was like could have been better in the
Hmm,
past if you had idea about it. I will say this is my last question for you.
cool.
It's in your opinion, what is the most common misconception that most people have about sales?
I think the misconception, the biggest misconception in my experience that people have about sales, it's probably one of two. Some people think that it's really difficult,
Hmm.
overly difficult, right? And you need to be born a salesperson. No,
Definitely.
you can create great salespeople. A lot of selling that we do is actually process driven. And what I mean by that is you can train people how to sell. Now, what you can't train, and the greatest salespeople in the world are those who have sometimes the natural instinct. But you can still train that. You can train listening. You can train to pick up for keywords, for buying signals, for understanding customer sentiment, for doing the heavy legwork, the research before you make a sales call. The cultural importance of doing research before a sales call. So by that I mean some of the best salespeople I know, before they make a call to an organization, will do an awful lot of research on that organization, down to what their culture is, what are their acronyms, how do they speak, what's their language. And if you replay that back in a sales process, you're going to win more times than your competition. So I think that's the biggest misnomer, or the biggest thing that people think, is that sales is too hard and you need to be a certain type of person to do it. If you're open to learning, if you're a good listener, if you're willing to work hard, you've got good attention to detail, and you're humble, you can be a great salesperson. And of the vast majority of people that I've met in all walks of life have those characteristics instinctively and innate in them. It's just they don't sometimes have the confidence that you need to be a salesperson. Does that help?
That's amazing. I couldn't ask for more. So thank you so much, actually, Padraic, for this amazing interview, and we really got a really big valuable insights from you, and very inspiring story. And hopefully, this is not going to be the last time we meet and listen from you. You have,
100%. Well,
I can
I
see.
hope you're going to join the All Hands next Tuesday, right? So I'll talk to you
I
then.
will definitely.
And listen, as you go through the coming weeks and months with this, just feel free to reach out to me, right? No problem. I'm always here.
Perfect. Do you have someone that you can recommend